The phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 10 missed calls in 4 minutes. Mom, Dad, Sophie all taking turns like it was a fire drill. I watched the screen light up, then fade, while snow tapped softly against my window. On the counter sat my packed suitcase, a boarding pass to Colorado folded beside it. 10:01 a.m. That was the time they were supposed to meet me at the bank to buy my sister her apartment, the one I was easily able to afford. I stirred my coffee calm and steady. I didn't argue. I just disappeared. But if you knew what pushed me to walk away, you'd understand why silence was the loudest thing I ever said. My name's Lily. I'm 30 years old and I've been working since I was 16. Back then, my friends were saving for concert tickets. I was saving for textbooks and gas money. I flipped burgers after school stocked shelves on weekends and told myself that every dollar was a step away from needing anyone's help. By the time I graduated high school, I had enough for one semester of college, barely. When I got accepted into Tech University, I thought my parents would be proud. I came home that night clutching the letter, my heart racing. I got in, I told them at dinner. My dad looked up from his phone long enough to say, "That's the expensive one, isn't it?" My mom sighed, slicing Sophie's chicken into tiny, perfect bites. "We don't have that kind of money, Lily. Maybe you should have tried harder for a full scholarship." I remember the sting in my throat as I forced a smile. Sophie, 12 years old at the time, grinned like she understood something I didn't. That was the moment I realized I was on my own. I took out student loans, $60,000 at first. By the time I graduated, the interest had turned it into 80. I worked through college campus tech lab tutoring whatever I could find. Most nights I fell asleep at my desk with an empty coffee cup and a half-eaten granola bar. The only person who cared enough to check on me was my grandma, Nora. She called every Sunday, sent me little envelopes with $50 bills and notes written in shaky, cursive, "Keep going, sweetheart. You're almost there." She was the reason I never gave up. When I finally graduated, my parents didn't come. They were on a cruise with Sophie, something we'd planned for months, my mom said over the phone. Grandma Nora drove 4 hours to be there. She stood in the crowd waving like I was the only person in the world. After graduation, I got my first real job as a software engineer. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I rented a small apartment, ate canned soup for dinner, and paid every extra dollar toward those loans. I watched my friends buy new cars and travel while I calculated how many years of payments I had left. 10 if I was lucky. My parents rarely called. When they did, the conversations were polite, shallow. "How's work?" "Good. That's nice." Sophie just got elected to student council. By the time I hit 30, I had one goal: finish the debt and finally breathe. The morning I made my last payment, I sat in silence staring at the screen that said, "Balance 0.0." It should have felt like freedom, and it did for a moment. Then the phone rang. Mom's name on the screen. After years of silence, she suddenly wanted dinner to reconnect. If I'd known what she really meant by reconnect, I would have let that call go to voicemail. Dinner at my parents' house felt exactly how I remembered it. Too clean, too quiet, like the air itself didn't trust you to breathe. Mom greeted me with a smile that looked rehearsed. Dad stood behind her hands tucked into his pockets. Sophie was already at the table scrolling on her phone, pretending not to notice me. "It's so good to see you," Mom said, leaning in for a hug that barely grazed my shoulder. "You've been so busy. We hardly hear from you." I wanted to laugh. "You hardly tried." Dinner was roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and the same old hierarchy. Sophie sat at the head of the table where Mom used to sit, chatting about her new job at a marketing firm. They listened like she was delivering the State of the Union. When I spoke, the room quieted in that polite, uninterested way. So Dad started carving his chicken. "You're still at that software company?" "Yes." "Good money in that field," he said. "Must be nice to be comfortable." I shrugged. "I'm doing okay." Mom poured wine into Sophie's glass before mine. "You deserve it, sweetheart," she said to her. "Not me. You've worked so hard." I bit my tongue. I'd worked harder than anyone at that table, but I'd learned long ago that saying so only made me look bitter. The next week, I went to visit Grandma Nora. She was sitting in her favorite armchair knitting something pink. "You saw them, didn't you?" she asked. I nodded. They seemed interested in my finances. Her knitting needles paused. Oh, Lily, that's exactly what I was afraid of. What do you mean? She sighed. My friend Judith, she lives next door to your parents, called me yesterday. Said she overheard them talking in the yard. They're planning to ask you to help Sophie buy an apartment. Something about $350,000. For a second, I thought I misheard her. They want me to buy her an apartment. Grandma nodded slowly. They said you have a good job now, no student loans, that you could easily afford it. That phrase hit me like a slap. Easily afford it. I spent 12 years climbing out of a hole they helped dig, and now they wanted me to jump into another one for Sophie. I sat back, my chest-tight eyes burning but dry. They didn't even pay $1 for my tuition, I said quietly. They told me to figure it out myself. I know, sweetheart, Grandma said softly. I was there. I looked at the little clock on her mantel, the second hand ticking too loud. They never cared how hard it was for me, and now they think I'm just an ATM with legs. Grandma put down her knitting and reached for my hand. You don't owe them anything, Lily, not after everything they put you through. Her words sank deep. I had spent years waiting for that validation from anyone, and now, hearing it out loud, it didn't feel like permission. It felt like release. That night, driving home through the snow, I replayed her words in my head. My phone buzzed again. Mom, I didn't answer. The voicemail that followed was syrupy sweet. Dinner again next week. We'd love to catch up. I pulled over staring at the glowing screen, and something inside me shifted. All my life I'd been taught that silence meant weakness, that not responding made me small. But sitting there, engine humming, snow drifting across the windshield, I realized something else. Sometimes silence is a strategy. They were planning their move, and for the first time, so was I. 2 weeks after that dinner, Mom called again. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. Your father and I were just saying how proud we are of you, Lily. Why don't you come by this weekend? We can have a nice family dinner. Sophie will be there, too. It was the first family dinner invite I'd had in years. I said yes, knowing exactly why they wanted me there. Saturday came, wrapped in gray skies and sleet. I almost turned around halfway there, but curiosity or maybe closure kept me driving. When I stepped inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and control. The good china was out. Sophie's laughter floated from the kitchen. Mom met me at the doorway, a little too cheerful. You look so professional these days, she said, eyes flicking over my coat, my boots, my bag. Your job must be treating you well. It's fine, I said. Dinner began like theater. Polite small talk, exaggerated smiles. Dad asked about my salary out of curiosity. Mom mentioned how Sophie had found this beautiful apartment downtown, great location, 2 bedrooms near her office. Sophie jumped in. It's perfect, Lily. You should see it. I smiled faintly. Sounds nice. Mom set down her fork and folded her hands like she was about to lead a prayer. Your father and I have been talking. Sophie's at a point in her life where she needs stability, and well, you're in such a strong financial position now. Dad cleared his throat. We think it would mean a lot if you helped her get started. Maybe co-sign the loan or even cover the payments for a while. I felt something in my chest tighten, but my face didn't move. $350,000, I said slowly as if tasting the number. Mom smiled. Exactly. It's not that much when you think about it. You could easily afford it. The sentence hit like a gunshot word for word what Grandma said I'd hear. I set my fork down gently. The room went still. Of course, I said. If that's what you want. Relief washed over their faces. Sophie squealed, hugging me. You're the best. I knew you'd help. I hugged her back, my smile soft and hollow. That night, I went home and started packing. Not in anger, in clarity. I pulled out my laptop and typed a short email to my boss, Eric. You mentioned the Colorado branch might be expanding. If that position's still open, I'd like to be considered. His reply came within hours. Let's talk Monday. I stood in my half-empty apartment cardboard boxes, open snow starting to fall outside. For the first time, I wasn't running from them, I was walking toward myself. They thought I'd show up at that bank to hand over my freedom. But the truth was, by the time they sat down to sign those papers, I'd already be gone. The week before the bank meeting, I moved like a ghost through my old life, packing boxes at night, canceling my lease, transferring my mail. Every detail was calculated methodical. By Friday, my apartment was stripped bare except for one small box labeled Colorado. I didn't tell Grandma Nora until the day before my flight. We were drinking tea in her kitchen, the smell of chamomile soft in the air. Colorado, she repeated, frowning slightly. That's so far. I nodded. I can't stay here, Grandma. They'll never stop taking if I keep giving. She studied my face for a long moment, then smiled, sad, proud. You do what you need to, sweetheart. Just promise you'll call me when you get there. I will. That night I double-checked everything, the movers, my ticket, the new apartment, waiting across state lines. My phone buzzed again. Mom, don't forget about the appointment. 10:00 a.m. sharp. I stared at the message until it blurred. Then I powered the phone off. Monday came gray and cold. The movers loaded my furniture while I cleaned the last streaks off the windows. When the door finally shut behind me, it felt like exhaling after years underwater. I turned in my keys, rolled my suitcase down the hall, and didn't look back. By Tuesday morning, I was standing in my new office in Colorado, different skyline, same snow. My boss Eric gave me a tour of the building, introduced me to the team, and said, "You'll fit right in here." I smiled. That's the plan. At 9:59 a.m. that Friday, my phone began to vibrate on the desk. First Mom, then Dad, then Sophie. Call after call, buzzing like angry wasps. I watched it for a moment before flipping it face down. At 10:03, I imagined them sitting at the bank, checking their watches, wondering why I was late. At 10:05, maybe Mom would start pacing, whispering that I was being selfish. At 10:10, Dad would grumble about embarrassment. At 10:15, Sophie would pout, crossing her arms, saying she promised. And by 10:30, when realization hit, I hoped the silence that followed would be deafening. Around noon, my phone lit up again. Texts stacked one after another. "Where are you? We're waiting. You're making us look stupid." Then finally, "Call us now." I took a slow sip of coffee and answered. Lily, Mom's voice was sharp, frantic. "Where the hell are you? We've been sitting here for 2 hours." I looked out the window at the Colorado mountains, sunlight glinting off the snow. "At work," I said. In Colorado. Silence. Then chaos. Colorado. "What are you talking about?" "I transferred last week," I said simply. "New position. New start." Mom's breath hitched like she'd been slapped. "You can't just run away like this. We need you here." "No," I said quietly. "You need my money. There's a difference." "Lily, don't be dramatic. We're family. I interrupted, my voice calm, steady. "You mean the people who told me I wasn't worth a loan for college but mortgaged the house for Sophie's tuition? The people who missed my graduation because she wanted a cruise?" "Don't twist this," she snapped. "You're being cruel." "Cruel," I laughed softly. "Do you want to know what cruel is, Mom? It's watching your own child drown in debt and calling it tough love. It's pretending fairness when all you ever did was pick a favorite." Her voice cracked. "We just thought you thought I'd still be desperate for your approval." Behind her, I could hear Sophie crying. "Lily, please just help me. I need this place to start my life." I swallowed hard, then start it, but not on my back. There was a pause, a heavy, disbelieving pause, and then Dad's voice came through, rough and angry. "You're disrespecting your mother. After everything we've done for you," I cut him off. "What exactly have you done?" "Dad." Besides, watch, the line went dead quiet. I could almost see their faces. Mom's jaw tight, Dad's hand gripping the phone, Sophie's tears, half frustration, half shock. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice low and trembling. "If you hang up now, don't bother coming back." I smiled, a small, honest smile that no one could see. "That's the idea." Then I ended the call. The phone buzzed again immediately, then again. I blocked their numbers one by one. Each block felt lighter, like cutting the strings of a puppet. For a few minutes, I just sat there, still listening to the hum of the office around me. My chest ached, but not from guilt, from relief. Outside, the light had changed. The snow was catching the sun, sparkling in a way that almost hurt to look at. I pressed my hand to the glass, the cold seeping into my skin, grounding me. In my mind, I could still hear Mom's last words, "Don't bother coming back." And for the first time, I believed her, and it felt like freedom. Later that afternoon, Grandma Nora called. Her voice was warm, steady. "They came by," she said. "They wanted me to call you to make you see reason." I laughed softly. "And did you?" "I told them reason left with you," she said. "I told them they'd lost the only decent heart in that house." I leaned back in my chair, eyes closing. The hum of the office, the distant sound of typing, the smell of coffee, it all felt new, clean, untouched. "I didn't argue," I said quietly, more to myself than to her. "I know," she replied. "That's why it worked." And she was right. I didn't need to shout to be heard. My silence had said everything. The next few days felt strangely quiet, like the world had turned down its volume. No more vibrating phone. No more guilt pressing at the back of my chest. Just silence. And for once, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I settled into my new apartment in Colorado, a modest one-bedroom with sunlight spilling across the hardwood floor every morning. I unpacked slowly, one box at a time, until the last thing left was a framed photo of Grandma Nora. I placed it on the kitchen counter next to a steaming mug of coffee. When she called that evening, her voice carried that soft, knowing smile I'd missed. "They're furious, you know," she said. "Came knocking on my door shouting about betrayal." "What did you tell them? That they've mistaken generosity for servitude," she replied. "And that I'm proud of you." I laughed quietly, staring out at the skyline, glowing pink against the snow. "You've always been the only one who saw me. I just wanted you to see yourself, Lily." Later, I scrolled through my phone. Voicemails filled my inbox, Mom's anger. Sophie's tears, Dad's silence. I deleted them all without listening. Outside, the city lights flickered to life one window at a time. Somewhere far away, they were still sitting in that house, blaming me for not being the daughter they could use. And here I was, finally living like the woman I'd fought to become. 6 months later, spring finally reached Colorado. The snow melted into bright rivers along the sidewalks, and the air smelled like new beginnings. Grandma Nora came to visit, wrapped in her favorite pink shawl. We sat on my balcony with cups of tea, watching the mountains turn gold in the afternoon light. "You know," I said, smiling, "I don't owe anyone anymore. Not their approval, not their forgiveness, nothing." Grandma reached over, squeezing my hand. "That's what freedom sounds like." I looked out across the city, feeling the calm settle in. For the first time, I'm not running from something. I'm running toward me. If you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, I hope this story reminds you you're not alone. Share your story below and stay with us for the next one.